The chapter starts in a viewing party with Mei explaining that the Summon Maharaga is a trump card of the Zenin clan, and Chozo adds that the Shikigami has the ability to adapt to all attacks. And I just have to say, wasn't Chozo stuck in a test tube for the last 150 years? What does this guy know about Maharaga? The scene switches back to the battlefield, and Sukuna's moving fine since Maharaga destroyed Unlimited Void. For the time being, it seems that Unlimited Void has had no lasting effects on Sukuna. It's interesting that the domain that's stated to affect sorcerers more than cursed spirits was able to stunlock the disaster grade curses with only 0.2 seconds, yet Sukuna seems to be fine. Well, as it turns out, Sukuna wasn't the one to take the sure hit, but neither was Maharaga. And unfortunately, that only leaves us with one option. That's right. As if Megami hasn't gone through enough at this point, Sukuna directed the burden of Unlimited Void to Megami's soul. And I think it's a good time to remind ourselves that through all the trauma that he's gone through, he's still just a 15-year-old kid. Against the expectations of every JJK content creator out there who thought we'd be seeing a bit of Jujustu Kaisen featuring Maharaga, Sukuna sends Maharaga back into the shadows and Maharaga almost looks disappointed. But Gojo sarcastically declares he's happy Sukuna has to resort to such desperate measures. I mean, the king of curses forcing a child to take the effects of a domain? So in chapter 228, Gojo wonders why Sukuna only uses the curse technique granted to the domain as opposed to the 10 shadows or anything else he possesses. Well, it turns out Sukuna wasn't just big dicking it because he's Sukuna. He was forcing Megami to adapt to the domain, meaning Sukuna was limited to cleave and dismantle. But this really goes to show not only Sukuna's battle IQ, but the reason he took an interest in the 10 shadows in the first place. In episode 4, when he fought Megami, it was the adaptability of the technique that piqued Sukuna's interest, and I believe that's what we're seeing. Gojo counters by stating that Megami hasn't actually adapted to Unlimited Void, but his soul was only used in the process to adapt, and if Gojo were to expand another domain, Sukuna would be forced to summon Maharaga once again, and this time Gojo would one-shot the Shikigami. Sukuna just laughs in the face of Gojo's taunt and states Gojo won't be expanding another domain as he's reaching his limit, and he's exactly right, as Gojo's nose bursts with blood as he attempts to expand his 6th domain. Yuta thinks to himself that his bad feeling has come true, but let's be honest, the real reason he's sweating is because he knows he's up next. But hey, maybe he can get Kashimo-senpai to step up first. It turns out that the process of healing a burnt out curse technique was a factor that led to Gojo's current state, because this process is actually achieved by destroying the part of the brain where the curse technique is engraved and then recovering it with RCT, which goes to show that even the greatest sorcerers on the planet are still only human. Well, since Gojo replicated this process more than Sukuna isn't suffering from the same effects and asks Gojo if he's hitting his limit. Sukuna, with Maharaga's wheel floating above his head, says that he's going to close off his next domain with a barrier so that Gojo can't escape and that all he has to do is cut Gojo and adapt to Void. Now, I'm not sure if this is due to the nature of spoilers, but this almost sounds like Sukuna himself can use the wheel to adapt, but we'll have to see when the full chapter comes out. Gojo falls to his knees when Sukuna hits him with a cold line. See your strongest. A guy that was born when I didn't exist. An ordinary guy. But then, immediately after activating the shrine, it crumbles from behind Sukuna and he begins bleeding not only from the nose, but also from his eyes. The time Sukuna had healed his burnt out curse technique, coupled by his whole 10 seconds in Unlimited Void, severely damaged his brain, and unfortunately Megami's too. Now neither of our combatants can expand a domain. Gojo goes full dickhead mode and just starts laughing at Sukuna. And to be honest, I find this pretty hilarious. We get a nice little callback to episode 2. Gojo points back at Mei's crows and says, "My students are watching me, I'm still gonna look cool." And we get a panel of all his students from Jujutsu High generally looking happy about the situation, but for some reason Inumaki looks like he's on smoke. I guess he still hasn't got over the missing arm. Now this is the final page. We get Gojo using blue to ragdoll Sukuna into a mean punch to the face. The narrator makes a callback to Yorozu's quote to Sukuna, "I have more to teach you about love and ultimate strength and the solitude it brings." It also says this is where round 2 begins, so with my big brain, I've deduced that round 2 is going to be Sukuna and Gojo going on a cutesy little date, talking about being all strong and solituded and shit. That was a phenomenal chapter. And we won't be getting any break next week, so fans can rejoice for that. It will be interesting to see how the battle plays out now that domains are no longer a factor. We've seen throughout the fight that due to Gojo's infinity, outside of a domain, Sukuna's limited to using domain amplification, and these recent chapters have only proven that with these conditions, Gojo has the upper hand, proven by how much Gojo was able to damage Sukuna within the 3 minutes of the shrunken domains. This could potentially be when we start seeing Sukuna's other techniques, as people have been itching to see that, but I'm failing to see how other techniques are going to have any effect on this battle. I'm sure there are techniques like the Flaming Arrow that have ridiculous power, but raw power alone isn't going to do anything when Gojo has the infinity. So, maybe there's a concept-based curse technique, something else that might work, but who knows? The only thing that's guaranteed in Jujutsu Kaisen is that whatever the community thinks is going to happen, Gege will take the story in a completely different direction, so we just have to buckle up and wait for what's to come. Thank you to everyone who tuned into this video. The last spoiler video I made got around 700 views, which was actually mind-boggling to me and has motivated me to keep these spoiler reviews coming, and I greatly appreciate people taking the time out their day to watch our videos. I switched up the style a bit from the last video because I wasn't a fan of the way I did the panning, so let me know if you prefer the full page as I displayed this video. But all that aside, have a wonderful day and don't forget to subscribe and tune in for more content like this and our upcoming Dungeons and Dragons campaign. That's going to be a biggie, watch out for that.